No, we can just get the two of you. I'll get the conversation started. And remember, what's important is that we're recording it and we're able to share it online and with others who may not be here.
Who's there with us?
We're supposed to have Hassan Raja from the down houses, but you... Where is he? No, he was here earlier, but he's not here. All right, please, Raj, take the center there. Yes. So thank you very much. Now the next session that we're going to have, we have Raj Mestry and Satikli here with us, and they are going to talk about the early days of Roshni. One of the 2 pages that we have, a double-page spread in the book, is we have the first 87 houses in Roshni. And the 2 of you lived in the section which was the top houses, and then of course we had down houses. So what we'd really like you to get a conversation going on about those early days. What are your memories of the early days? And we'd like to capture that. So over to you. You can go for about half an hour or so, and then we'll wrap up. The sound people will help us.
Okay, I got it.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Firstly, thank you for attending the session. We're going to try and create a situation or a scenario of how, when people moved from top location, when they moved from Everton, they moved from Vereeniging Town and other suburbs to Roshni. But I just want to start off with it, and I want to welcome you as well onto the panel. Unfortunately, Hassan Raja has hurt himself and will not be here.
Okay.
So I want to read something to you that I thought about. I thought it was so apt. And it is from Charles Dickens' Tale of Two Cities. And I'll explain to you why it brings so much of relevance to what we're going to be talking about. So I'm going to read it. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief. It was the epoch of incredulity. It was a season of light. It was a season of darkness. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. We had everything before us. We were all going direct to heaven. We were all going direct the other way. In short, the period was so far like the present period that some of its noisiest authorities insisted on its being received for good or the evil in the superlative degree of comparison only.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So the reason I chose this Tale of Two Cities, I look at Roshni. You must remember that it is because of apartheid that we were brought into Roshni.
Yes, yes.
So that is why it is the worst of times. But you also have to understand one thing, that many who came the first time to Roshni were poor, or they didn't have sufficient place in their homes to live a comfortable life. So therefore, it was the best of times.
It was, yeah. It was an upgrade from where we were in top location.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I mean, people, we heard early on about the pit toilets. People didn't have flush toilets.
Yes.
And so this is the kind of situation we were placed in. So that's the first thing. What is interesting is Charles Dickens talks about the season of light. Roshni is light.
Light, yeah.
It was a season of darkness because the people who chose to come, even us, even if you were poor at that time, to leave Roshni, to leave top location was not an easy thing. We were forced.
We were forced to come. Absolutely, we were totally forced to come. And nobody at that time had any vision of what Roshni is going to be.
Absolutely. I just want to tell you, while I'm talking about this, this is interesting. So that in Vereeniging, and I'm talking of top location, that one, because of the forced removal that we had to leave, but what is also a kind of maybe a metaphor, I would use a metaphor here, in a sense that we were sent to Dumbfontein, but when we changed that word, we were dumped
Into Roshni.
into Roshni.
Yes.
So it was, and Dumbfontein was very close here, because when they were talking about moving, and when I was doing my research on this, they chose this area because it was a farm near Dumbfontein.
Yeah, we were, in fact, I was made to believe that we were originally supposed to have Roshni in the Dumbfontein area, current Dumbfontein.
That's right.
area. That's
So that was the one interesting. The second thing is, for those who were poor, they seen themselves going into heaven. Because life changed considerably.
Yes.
In terms of a beautiful town that it evolved.
That it evolved
So,
into.
so,
Yes.
so I'm just thinking how Charles Dickens, writing The Tale of Two Cities,
So apt.
so apt to bring in the issue of Roshni.
Yes, yes,
So-
definitely.
So just a few more things I thought I wanted to mention as well, before I give you a chance, that we claim to be a close-knit family, a place where everyone knows everyone.
Yes.
I must say, what was interesting when Manjani said last night was that you may not know of yourself, but everybody else knows about you.
I even spoke to her about it.
Yeah, a town teeming with those who rely on each other. We love and we rely on each other. Not be defined. It was not defined by the number of people,
Yeah.
and not the number of square meters.
No, no.
So, I bring the story here that for us as a family, we lived in a tin shanty.
In location.
In location.
Yes.
There was poverty that my father battled to get a job, and he worked as a dry cleaning agent for his brother.
Yes, yes.
That's Percy's
For
uncle.
Uncle Percy, yeah.
His father, Percy's father. But the sad part is, which I mentioned early on, when we got to Roshni in 1969, he only lived for 2 weeks, and he had a massive heart attack and died.
He died. Shame.
And that was a sad part of it. But what was strange, my brother Utra and I, we went to the clubhouse. If you can remember,
Yes, yes.
Isupi Bayat having the clubhouse.
Yes.
We went to go see a film that evening, it was a Wednesday evening. And when we came home to Roshni, because we had to come by car to Roshni from
Roshni.
top location, we seen so many cars at our home. It was the neighbors who came to help when my father had passed on. We were not there.
Wow.
So that showed you the kind of people that we were in those days.
Yes. And the unity.
Absolutely,
And the
absolutely. And over again, it has been emphasized here that we had this unity.
True.
So I'm going to just tell you, and Yunus mentioned it earlier on, what was strange was we had, it was 87 houses, but listen to this, this was interesting. The 4-bedroom house at that time cost 3,710 rand.
Yes.
3-bedroom house cost 3,500 rand. A 2-bedroom house, 3,275 rand. Can you believe that? Per month, this is what we paid per month.
38 rand, I think it was.
32 rand for a
32
3-bedroom
rand,
house.
yes.
32 rand.
Rands. You know, I remember, Raj, I remember when we moved in, there were lots of houses that were not occupied.
Yes.
They were not even sold yet.
Right.
And it fails my memory. I don't know the name of the person in the council, but I spoke to my dad and I said to him, Dad, if this, he says, he came home one evening and he said, I met this person in the council and he wants me to take few more houses. So I said, why don't you do it? You know, I mean, we're young at the time. And
Right.
he said, tell me what. He said, son, how am I going to pay the 32 rands?
Can you believe
Yes,
it?
how am I gonna-
32 rand in 1967
Yes.
is worth now 32,000 rand.
Yeah, easily.
Absolutely.
And that was in 1969. We're talking
Right.
like
So
55
now, what
years
I want to take you to advise the audience here, or to give the audience a understanding, how is your emotions when you knew now you had to move? I know you people were on the, we were in Asir Crescent Street. What street were you people?
Khalil Gibran.
Khalil Gibran. Yeah. So what is your emotions about coming into Roshni?
You know, when we moved into Roshni, we moved in the same year that you did in 1969. And it was very emotional because suddenly we were in an area where there weren't many people living. Like I said, of the 87 houses, I think at that time maybe about 30 houses or maybe 40 at the most were occupied.
Right.
So there were no friends, there was no family around you, and we had no shops.
Okay.
There was no filling station.
Right.
The roads weren't tarred.
Right.
So there were lots of mixed emotions. In one respect, the social structure that we had in top location was gone.
Absolutely.
But of course, in the same breath, we were also having a better standard of living than we had in location.
Absolutely. I mean, the example of talking of the pit toilets, we've got flush toilets.
That's right. From where we were, we used to call them kakabalis.
Right. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I thought, say it again clearly, let the people know about it.
Kakabali. That's what we used to call them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so we moved from that, it was an upgrade. So there were lots of mixed emotions. We had no school.
Yes.
There was nothing in Roshni. I mean, short of those 87 houses, there was nothing else.
Absolutely.
Some of the houses were still being built, actually.
And we felt.
Yeah, nothing.
Nothing.
We were able, from our house, Asir Crescent, you had that open piece of land.
Right.
And then, because the houses in front of you were short, the lanes were a little bit shorter. But from Khalil Gibran, there was absolutely nothing, all the way to Dadabai's farm.
But can I ask you then, if you had to now reflect on the past, knowing that we had gone to an isolated area, some were happy because they were 12 kilometers closer to Joburg. Yeah. But also those who were sad were 12 kilometers away from town.
That's right. Yes.
So there was But what I want to ask of you now.
But we were away from Dairy Den.
Oh yes. Oh yes. But the Sundays when we used to walk from the top location and go and get your
ice cream.
Ice cream.
That's right. Yeah.
And then you had those what was it? Burger houses.
That's right.
The Ranch.
Yes. And we also had the problem. The other issue of coming to Roshni was that all basic necessities we had to buy. Basic stuff had to be bought in town. We were going to school at the time in Vereniging.
Right.
So, from location it was easy. They used to take us on a bicycle and take us to town.
Right.
And now you couldn't do that anymore.
Okay, so having gone through these challenges, and now if you trace back over the years, what are your thoughts about Roshni now? How do you see Roshni as a suburb in comparison to other suburbs? How would you describe Roshni in terms of the people, the unity, if you want to? Also bring in the issue around the education, the schools, which we did mention earlier on, the places of worship.
Yes.
Give me a little bit of a understanding of that.
I think over the years and with the number of people that have moved into Roshni, a lot has changed. However, the unity, I must say, even up until today, the unity is very strong. It was quite a challenge at the time to go to madrasa, to go to school.
Right.
I think it was in the second year. Our school, I think, if I remember correctly, opened in 1971 or 72.
Right.
Yeah, so it was, when the school opened, by then more people had come into Roshni, and then the transport problem that we had been reversed. Now the children from location had to come to Roshni to school.
Yes.
So, and then of course, the shops were being built. But reflecting back on those days, look, it was a much smaller community. It cannot really be compared to the kind of community that we have today. But a lot of basic things in the community remained.
Okay.
The friendship, the unity, the assistance that everyone gave each other. Fortunately, in our growth, we haven't lost that.
So can I say this correctly? That with the older people, that the camaraderie still existed or still exists, because the younger people have got a different set of values, different life. So amongst themselves, they would be united. But if you're looking at the older people, they seem to be more susceptible to the kind of unity, the kind of friendship that existed.
I think, yeah, it's today's groups and today's friendship. I don't think it's a bit of a far cry from what the older people had, and also a large issue of the old and now is security.
Absolutely.
When we were in Roshni, when we first moved into Roshni, we didn't need to lock our doors.
Now, this is what my next point was. In terms of a political view now, because we've got the freedom to say what we want to say, and think carefully about what I'm saying, because it's quite interesting, this question now, where we lived amongst black Africans, we lived amongst coloreds, we lived amongst Chinese, that was mentioned as well,
and
we had the Indians as well. Yes. Do you think that was a kind of a model where people could coexist, or do you think coming to Roshni was really an advantage? It's a tricky question, because it also plays around your political understanding of this thing here.
Nobody today, even from the old generation, nobody approved of the apartheid regime. We knew that it was morally, ethically incorrect to have that kind of laws in the country. However, and this is my personal view, keeping us under separate development was the birth of this community today. Had we then integrated amongst the other communities, we wouldn't have had a Roshni of this caliber.
Right. Now you would realize
I'm not approving of the
right.
the time.
But the reason I'm saying this, that if you had to put this on a WhatsApp, you would be slaughtered.
Oh no, definitely, I know
you'd be slaughtered.
Yes, absolutely.
But I think there's merits in looking at this thing. So in the one way, and this is where the tale of two cities come in as well.
Yes.
That on the one hand, it was not good, but on the other hand, there were advantages in living separately.
There were definitely advantages.
The question is, in this day and age, should Roshni be remaining like this, or do you think it has to change like the face of say, Johannesburg, where there is diversity? It's not an easy question.
It's a very difficult question to answer.
Difficult question.
But I think, in my opinion, that if most of the people around Roshni, if you ask, probably 80% plus would say they are happy with the situation as it is today.
Right. But tell me something.
Oh, okay.
So the reason I'm probing the politics of this thing, that very few people from other race groups have moved into Roshni. Was there a deliberate attempt to get them to come and settle in, or it was just by choice that people chose not to come here?
I think in the beginning it was by choice. Today, I think not so much by choice. I think today a lot of people outside the Indian, so to speak, Indian community would like to come and live in Roshni for various reasons. But property values in Roshni have gone up. I mean, we just spoke about it. 32,000 rand was the value of my dad's house.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm glad we've got that idea or that understanding, because it's not an easy
no, it's not.
Response. Because on the one hand, it is true that people who share the common values, probably even common religion, or common culture, more culture,
cultured more than anything else. Yes.
and values would like to be
Together.
residing together.
Together,
All right.
absolutely.
So let's now go to the next part. If you had to make changes to Roshni, what are some of the changes you would make to Roshni?
I wouldn't make any changes.
You wouldn't make any changes. So in other words, you are quite happy the way Roshni is.
Absolutely not. I think the Roshni is beautiful just the way it is.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to make any changes to Roshni.
All right, so I respect that because it's an important point to note that it is, well, look, there are lots of reasons why Roshni would be good.
Yes, of
As a
course.
place.
We can go through those up
But
plenty.
one of the things we have to acknowledge that there is no other suburb than Roshni that has got a foolproof security system.
It's amazing, you know, when we talk about our security system, when it comes to, when you mention it to other towns, it's almost unbelievable,
Absolutely.
really. Lots of, you know, we don't want to go into the politics of it, but just purely as a security system. Okay, Roshni has an advantage that we don't have too many entrances. We just got the one entrance, which makes it easier to monitor. But overall, I mean, I cannot possibly imagine women with children walking around 10 o'clock at night in any other suburb in the country.
Right.
And it doesn't matter whether it's Indian, white, colored, black, but it's just not, it's
And so that's
unimaginable.
That's a
It's
plus.
It's a big plus.
That's a
It's
big
very
plus
big
for
plus.
Roshni. Would you say, in terms of the infrastructure, there's something unique about Roshni? That RNW, and I'm mentioning them by name,
Yes.
that when there are potholes, they don't wait for the council to come and fix those things up.
No, absolutely not.
They do it on their own.
On their own.
So how would you comment on that then?
Now we're getting into the politics.
No, but it's also about the unity.
it's the
Remember,
unity.
RNW
It's about-
survives because of people contributing to RNW.
Yes.
So in
Yes, we
other
have to
words-
give them.
So in other words, yes, there is politics, but at the same time, that can only be made possible if the people were united.
Absolutely.
Let's give you
Absolutely.
I can cite another example. There was talk more recently about building a mining company.
Yes,
here.
just here in Damfontein.
And the people got together, they were united.
Yes, were you at that function that evening?
Right.
Yeah.
And so we got story now that they're no longer going to they're not going to build a mine.
Mine the coal there.
So that is one. The other thing is when we had a problem with water, the community got together to take the rainwater board to the High Court.
Yes. Yes, that's...
And High Court began to backstep their ideas and realized they had to service Roshni with water.
That's what makes Roshni so unique. It's the ability to be able to fight your battles together.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So this is why I say,
That's
on the one hand, yes, it may be political, but on the other hand, it is also showing that strong bond amongst people as well.
Absolutely. And this comes from top location. The culture, the unity
Absolutely.
comes from top location.
Okay, but now I'm going to ask you a more difficult question.
Yes.
Now. So we know that there are a lot of people coming from other towns, other countries.
Yes.
What are your views? Because there's also this talk, hey, it seems that the Indians are taking over our town. What are your views about that now?
Oh my God, I wouldn't like to comment on that, Raj. I really don't.
I would say that if they live side by side.
You know, funny enough, I had a discussion with my son coming from Johannesburg earlier this morning, and this issue about the Indians came into our discussion, and he said something to me. He says, Daddy, but isn't that exactly where our ancestors came from?
Absolutely.
And I said, absolutely. He says, you know, they came here, there's only a difference in time. So they came here 80 years ago, and these people have come now. 50 years from today, it will be a different story. They would be local South Africans now.
Okay, so I think we've done that kind of thing. We've got a clear understanding of, so we don't mind diversity.
I think, I was going to mention this earlier. You see, in top location, we lived with people who were able to live with the same standards of living, same culture, and same values. And I think if we move into another town like we do in Roshni, as long as key people can maintain those same culture, standards of living and values of life, then we have no problem, immaterial of their origin or their color or whatever it may be. But that has to be maintained. Obviously, we don't want rowdy neighborhoods and things like that,
So I'm glad you've raised those issues. I just want to come back to a few things, your thoughts. What would you say? Okay, you said there's nothing you would like to change, it will have to remain
Not the
as
way
is.
it is.
But if I asked you now, if you were on a committee and there's a talk about building a higher education institution in Roshni, what would your view be there?
I don't know if Roshni is ready for a higher, it's not only the number of students that you're going to have there, but you've got to look at academic staff. I raised this a few times about healthcare, and I said, why don't we, I even spoke to Dr. Tikle about it, and I said, why don't we open up a small little clinic here,
Right.
Not a clinic, sorry, a hospital. Right. And the first thing he said to me is, your specialists are not going to come to Roshni.
Right.
Okay.
So there are.
It's not lucrative for them to come and do it in Roshni.
I see. Okay, no, that makes
So,
sense
yes.
as well.
So
but we can boast, now that you mentioned that we can boast of our healthcare here.
Absolutely.
We've got doctors who go from house to house and see to the elderly.
Yes, free of charge.
Free of charge.
Yeah, we've got a clinic that
And-
services the community at a
and there's-
price that nobody else can.
Absolutely. At the time of the COVID, the ambulances were made available.
Absolutely, totally free of charge.
Free of charge.
But even our R55, this pictorial history, it doesn't happen. No, I mean, this is probably the first town or suburb that has done something like
Absolutely.
this. I
absolutely.
haven't heard about it, or
So-
it just I keep going back to that. I think the birth of all this was from location. Is the way the people lived with each other. It's the way they communicated with each other and how they supported each other, and they brought that culture over to Roshni.
And I think that because the values are so strong,
Yes.
the culture becomes so strong,
absolutely.
therefore the community becomes strong as well.
Very much so.
So-
And if you take those 87 houses, we were all from top location.
Absolutely.
There was
Absolutely.
nobody from out of town at that
Absolutely.
time.
So I think we've covered most of the issues. Is there anything else that you think we need to raise?
Not in terms of Roshni. Maybe we can just deliberate a little bit about life in top location.
That was a whole session that was
That was held earlier.
earlier. That was,
okay,
so
okay,
we
okay.
wouldn't
Yes,
want to
yes, yes.
repeat those
Yes,
kinds of things. So that was a nice session as well, where the panel with Babu Belisha and Percy.
I think, in terms of Roshni itself, I think Roshni is ready for two things that that can cross my mind. Is there a very good supermarket,
Okay.
and I think a good sit-down restaurant.
Okay.
Sorry, just 1 second. For those that are listening to us here, the Asr Salah is taking place in the Namaz room. So those of you who want to make your Asr Salah, you're welcome to please go to the Namaz room.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for that announcement.
So those
So that's
those are the two things that I think Roshni is ready for. Like we said, higher education, hospital. Maybe we're not ready for it as yet.
Okay.
But I think those are two things that maybe we can change or we can bring into Roshni. The hall, I mean, at one time Roshni had nothing.
That's true. Yes.
But over the years, as we went, I mean, go back to those 87 homes, and from there onwards, I mean, it's grown and grown and grown, and then of course the addition to Daredevil made a big difference to the
Yes.
numbers of people in Roshni.
Look, in the case of Daredevil, what we can say is that it helped ease the housing situation.
Absolutely, absolutely.
As much as it was a private enterprise,
Yes.
but in the main, it was there to serve the people.
And you can, Daredevil is considered part of Roshni.
Absolutely.
It's
In
not
fact,
like a separate
when I write
township.
my address, I say Daredevil, Roshni.
Roshni, that's right.
Because it's actually part
Yes,
of it.
the principal area is Roshni.
But if I don't know.
Daredevil doesn't have an entrance.
But can you recall? I don't think you recall, but your father maybe would have told you that many years ago,
Yes.
Daredevil, this Ahmed's father,
Yes.
Ahmed Daredevil's
Solomon.
father, had invited Dr. then Professor Chris Barnard.
I was there that
You
day.
were there.
Yes, I was there.
I think wasn't that fantastic?
Yeah, it was fantastic.
At the time when he was in fame, when he just did the first heart transplant
It was just after the first heart operation.
in the world.
Yes.
He was invited to Vereeniging.
But isn't that a vision that our older people had?
Right.
You know, it was the vision of the old people that really, if you look at everything around here, you know, our religious, the mosques, the burial areas, it's just unique. Roshni is unique in all those aspects. Absolutely unique in those
But also
aspects.
we must be realistic that there are problems, there will be problems.
Sorry, Raj, 1 second.
Yeah. Oh, we must close up. We can stop. Yeah, we can. Okay, so we're gonna. What we'll do is.
You can round off. Just,
Just yeah. Okay, so very quickly then, what we were the last that we discussed then.
we were talking about the vision of the old people.
Oh, yes.
And where it led us, you know.
Right.
And in terms of, like I said, in so many structures of Roshni.
Right.
It's unique. We don't have this in any other places.
So in closing,
Yes.
what would you think should be the vision for Roshni?
I think if we just continue on the path that we are going at the moment, 50 years from today, when you and I are not here, people will be sitting here and looking back and saying, you know, 50 years ago, this was the vision of the people then, and today it's materialized. And I think that's, you know, we just have to stay on the path that we are on at the moment.
But I said, I think this is what we know. We can't do this now. But as I mentioned, there are some kinds of problems. There are COVID. You
Yes.
cannot see, it is not open.
Yes.
And perhaps if the community works around some of those issues, it will strengthen the relationship with people.
Yes, I think it will. I must agree with you.
All right.
Must agree.
So I think, thank you very much for the session here.
Thank you
and
for having
all the
me.
best to you.
Thank
and
you
we
so
hope
much.
that Roshni grows from strength to strength.
Thank you so much. Yes, all the best to everybody.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Do you want the mic?